Welcome to the Smoking Word.
What's up, everybody? We are back, the Smoking Word podcast. Shout out to everybody who's been tapping in. We've been checking those algorithms and all those other big words that people talk about that comes along with this, but we see you tapping Europe. We know you out there. Deutschland, England. We see you, South America, Canada. We see you and we coming. But today we got something different. Usually we have somebody who's behind an instrument. So now we got somebody who was behind the instruments. Or I don't know how you would say, but at one point he was putting out the music, and besides putting out music, he was putting out protein powder, books, and a whole bunch of other stuff that we'll get into. But everybody, I know him as Andy Thorp, but now, once you write a book and shit, Andrew Thorp, the author of... Hold the book up. Everybody take a snapshot of right there. Boom, get it. You see right there. Failure rules. Let me read the whole thing. The 5 rules of failure for entrepreneurs, creatives. Keep going. And
Authentics
by Andrew Thorp.
King.
There you go. And I never knew the King part. You know that?
Yeah. I always went by Thorp. So
yeah, Andy Thorp. No. And by the way, congratulations on the book, everybody. We'll get into that, but but definitely before we even start, like I was saying, I want to connect the dots to everybody who. Before I let you introduce yourself to our audience, I want to let everybody know that the connection here was. I was trying to think of the word before, and it wasn't label mates. It was like label partners.
Yes,
because
right.
You were the label, and we were the guys behind. But we actually worked in the past with Thorp Records. I know you guys might have heard of it. I forgot which record or which EP we did. I got confused, but
YHC EP.
And that was a good one. That was a banger.
For My Enemies debuted.
Hold on.
For My Enemies came to the world.
That's I gotta say. You got yourself some history. I don't usually gas myself up, but when that became part of the arsenal, and it was definitely a good time for the band also. But since then, you've done a lot, and we're gonna get into them. That's what I like to do on the show. Is like basically, besides showing the bands, is people from our world who basically are doing. I don't even want to just say bigger things, just other things, because other things are bigger things, for whatever. So, but. Like I just said, you went from doing records and all that. We'll give everybody a quick evolution of whatever. First of all, let everybody know the origins, your hometown. Where did you come up? Let everybody know you come up, because I think I'll paint the picture on the rest.
Sure. Yeah. So grew up in the Philly area, what they call Delco, Delaware County, which is kind of like this blue collar. It's almost got its own vernacular, its own kind of accent. You know what I mean? You see it now, like in a lot of shows and movies, like what was it, Mayor of Easttown? That was all in Delco. So that kind of brought Delco to the forefront,
Yeah.
There was another movie with Jeremy Pippen called Last Call. So I come from Delco originally.
Yeah.
Right? I did live in Ohio for about 7 years when I was entrenched in the music industry.
Yeah.
Working for Lumberjack, which later became Mordam. I was like a top salesman over there. That's when Thorp Records was really kind of starting to rise, and Sailor's Grave Records was born.
Lumberjack, man. I forgot all about, man. I forgot the names. I'm like,
it's like a whole nother world. It's years ago. Yeah,
I know. Records. It's actually like records and not just like these waves that go over the computer and everything. But Philly, of course, besides just, hardcore punk, it's just a music town in general.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's a given, but obviously you came up through the hardcore side. That's the connection from us, but that's why I always love, like I always say, we're more than hardcore kids, but we hardcore kids first.
That's
you know
right.
what I mean?
That's right. Permeates everything. Whatever else you do, you still got that hardcore kid inside.
It comes through, and no matter what,
That's
it's
right.
the fucking the nebulous, the nucleus, whatever you want to call it. But Philly, you come up. How you can't. Obviously, I'm assuming blue collar family from a working class family. I could take from. What was the scenery for you coming up? In Philly at that time, musically, and just what were you doing?
I just remember, like it was like 7th, 8th grade. I was like into like normal rock and roll stuff, right?
Yeah.
Like Sabbath, whatever, like Motorhead, like whatever. And then I had this friend, the skateboarder friend. I was in like the BMX skate culture.
Yep.
He gave me this cassette tape with like Murphy's Law, Black Flag, old Philly band Why Die, old Philly band Ruin. And like I just lost my mind. It was like a whole new like world of like energy and aggression. And from then on, dude, I was converted. I mean, the Murphy's Law self-titled record that like changed my trajectory. Like I was in a band years ago and played with Murphy's Law. That was like a big deal, you know.
Yeah.
But that changed the trajectory. And then I remember 1989, dude, when I was managing a skateboard shop, and I was in charge of like ordering music for the skateboard shop, and got Ball of Destruction 7-inch, dude. And
yeah, crazy.
Been like hooked on Madball ever since. So I was like 15 then. I'm 49 then. Now, I still listen to Madball like almost every day.
Salute.
So work with you guys back in 04. Like that
sure.
was a huge pivotal moment, not just for me, but also for the labels.
It was important for us too at that time. Definitely, we were getting off other labels, and we had to let people know that we weren't going nowhere at the time. So it was
it was like an entryway back into the space, like after Hold It Down and everything was going on with you guys personally, and then for me as a label, like that cascaded into signing like Blood for Blood, Slap Shot, Sheer Terror, Ramallah, a whole bunch of other stuff. You know what I mean?
Jesus, yeah. We'll get to that because I want to first go into because it kind of is going to lead into what you end up doing and the kind of person you kind of started, molding yourself into as far as, so you were running a skateboard shop, huh? So
this was years ago, like teenage years. I was
but that's where it starts. First of all, how many teenagers even have jobs anymore? You know what I mean? In general, so I salute you on having a job at being a teenager. But all right, working around the skate shop, obviously it starts with the love of music. You sneak in your playlist wherever we could hear it with permission.
Yep,
we get it. You start doing that. What's the next move? You're listening to music. You're going to shows where in Philly? Where's your spot in Pennsylvania? Like when you would go check out shows, like where you would say it was like
I grew up going to the Troc and the Unitarian Church, man. Joe Hardcore, all the shit he put on. I remember Joey when he was 16 with a ponytail, moshing with a Rancid shirt on.
Yeah. Shout out to Joe. Hell yeah.
So like just the whole Philly scene, Robbie Red Cheeks, all of that stuff. But like my first show was 1989 at Revival, dude. It was Bad Brains, Leeway, and some band Throttle. And that was like my first show. And that was like, I was hooked from there. Like, my first pit was being in a Bad Brains show.
Yeah, that's a great intro right there with Leeway. Shout out to Leeway. That's one of, for me, Leeway, so important to, my DNA as a musician, for like just what I like and whatever. So, you're going to shows and all that. What are you doing for work? Like, because my whole thing is with you, your whole thing is you wore so many hats. So it's like, okay, it started there kind of. All right, you had the regular kid job, but it's good. Skate shop, you're still within the culture, but still you're finding, I wish I found that I wish I realized that there was more business, and not in the sense of just trying to get paid, but like, wow, you could get paid for doing something you love. Like there was more angles to music than just writing, like putting out a label, promoting a band, being, a manager, all that. And then not till the later years it sank in. So I always saluted the people when everybody wanted to be in a band. I always saluted the kids that were like, yo, I got a zine. Yo, I got to do this. I was like, yo, you got to love to do that. Because I know that's hard work. You know what I mean?
It's like you're on the peripheral of the scene, but you're supporting the scene. It's the whole ecosystem mentality, right?
Yeah.
So I think it was like, it's probably like when I was like graduated college. I really leaned into hardcore while I was in college. But then after college, I dropped like my student teaching or my teaching degree, just took an English degree. So the world was wide open. I was working as a union steel worker at a steel plant. And that's when I really wanted to do something in music. So I started writing for music magazines, Rockpile, Chord magazine back in the day, good old Met, who had 2 Damn Height.
Yeah, hell yeah, Chord.
And then I was like, you know what, this ain't making any money. I'm going to go deeper. So I wanted to start a label. So I actually started shadowing Met on 2 Damn Height. Love the guy. But, some good lessons, some bad lessons, you know what I mean? And
wild style lifestyles. Yeah, shout out to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and all that.
Philly wild style.
Yeah.
And ended up, first band just went balls in and signed Breakdown, man. Went and met with Jeff Perlin and Dijon and signed them. This is like decades ago, you know what I mean? And
so Breakdown
journey,
Yeah, Breakdown was the first, huh?
Yeah.
That's
First record
great.
breakdown.
Again, so important to my DNA. That's like my,
Mhm.
that's my everything. Like,
Yeah,
I had him on the
Roger
podcast.
Roger did guest vocals on it.
Oh,
It was like surreal for me. Like I went down to some of the studio with him a little bit, did some of the gang vocals,
yeah.
meeting AJ played on that record, AJ
Oh,
McCullough.
definitely. Oh, definitely. And then, yeah. Now, all right, obviously, so you were around Matt and he saw Too Damn Hype and you were like, yo, I kind of like this. I like this.
Yeah.
What made you pull the trigger on it? Was it like, did you see him and say, yo, not obviously he did a good job, but were you like, yeah, I think I could do this? Or you were like, yo, I want to do this because I think I could, what was your objective with it? Or you were just like, fuck, let me just jump into it for the hell of it kind of thing?
It was thought out, but it wasn't thought out. It was thought out in the sense it was just like I had this passion in me to do something hardcore, and to participate and to contribute and to kind of like sponsor, so to speak, the shit that I love and get it out in the world. And from a financial perspective, I had no idea what I was doing. I figured all that out later, which is why I wrote this book. Lots of lessons learned in various spaces of the last 20 years. You know what I mean? And feel like I've gained some wisdom to share along. But yeah, back then I just wanted to dive right in. And so I did, man. I mean, and there was a lot of trouble over the years, but at the same time, like here we are over 20 years later, I have 2 labels, released over 100 releases between the 2 labels. I still do other stuff full time, but I do the labels here and there and put stuff out. Still work with some bands on Sailor's Grave Records, Goddamn Gallows, Flatfoot 56, Coffin Cats, who are really big in the psychobilly scene. And it's just a tapestry part of my life, man. Like music is always gonna be a part of my life. I don't want to be passive. I got to be active. So even in my book, like a lot of the stuff I write about in Failure Rules, man, is my experiences in the hardcore scene, how lyrics affected my life and decisions, how like music gave me strength. I got a soundtrack to the book called the Failure Rules soundtrack. It's got everything from Madball to Terror.
I've seen it. Yeah, you blasted, which is cool. Actually, a cool thing that you do. You have a playlist. You pass around. It goes with kind of with the book where you at. Like it's a cool thing that that you connected with that. And that was the thing. Let me ask you this: when you did, because we're gonna get into. I know you did a bunch of other stuff, but really consolidated in the record part because that was a part of you. But you've done other stuff since then. What were some of the problems you ran into in a nutshell, being a new label that maybe you could tell, you could kind of throw out there right now for somebody new, maybe wanting to try to drop a label, what to look out for in a nutshell, like being a new label, what should I look out for?
You got to find what your value proposition is, and that's ever changing. Back then, it was all about you really were the gatekeeper. Like a band could not get their music out to the world unless they went through you. You went through distributors. Distributors had to negotiate with the stores for shelf space. There was a whole like waterfall of fucking gatekeepers you had to navigate through. You really needed a label, and you needed them for financing, right? These days, that's different. You got direct to consumer. You can get right on the internet, go right to the people. But labels still have their place for certain bands at certain inflection points, but not all the time. Bands have more power. That's great. Labels can bring branding. They can bring a network. They can bring financing when you need it. They can bring, kind of a proven marketing system. So they still have their value. So I think it's about shaping that value prop if you want to start a label or if you are a label. And, we've kind of developed our niche over time. And we know where we're a good fit for a band and we can bring value. And there's times we're like, dude, you don't need us, man. You're on your own. You don't need us.
Yeah.
So
and that's
that discernment.
And to be able to have a label that's actually working for bands and that would actually tell you that, like, not to try to diss a band, but maybe like we're not the right fit or not needed. It's a different kind of gas. You ain't gonna put diesel gasoline in, a regular gas tank. Everything deserves its own thing, kind of thing. I get that, and it's like, and then I know you did the label. You were really heavy, on the hardcore side. My dogs are getting like, I don't know what they're doing, but anyway. But that you were really hardcore heavy with it. I know then you obviously with other bands, you expanded at other labels.
Yeah.
Where was the next venture? What made you start your next venture? Was it hitting problems with the label? Or was there any problems, or you just
within music, like
within the next move you made outside of music? You have the labels because you still work within music, but there was something that said, "Okay, yo, let me kind of get away from it. Let me move to this while I have this cooking or fishing over there. Let me do something else." What was the moment that made you say, I think it's time for something, the next move?
I never really had a plan B, man. I was running a gun, and my plan B was just working in music industry. I worked at Relapse Records for like a couple of years, then a Lumberjack for 3 or 4 years. Labels started taking off, went out my own, got an office in downtown Toledo, Ohio, and was full gunning on 2 labels with like a full release schedule. I think I was doing like 20 records a year, and I got too zealous. I got too ahead of myself. I got overextended. At the same time, like, the physical world of music was starting to crash. The digital world was rising, but not quick enough. And you had like sales going down, the physical world returns, Tower Records closed. I got in a financial crunch, man. And I had to pivot, man. I kind of like laid off staff and just had to recoup and everything else. And, I ended up like then getting into finance and banking, which I've been in for years, which has been amazing because that actually gives me more stability, more money to help me with my hobbies, to help fund the record labels, all that kind of stuff. But I ended up like really doing a 180. And then also over the years, I own businesses and like online lending and owned a gym. I wrote a spy novel, so I've done a bunch of different things, you know what I mean? And to me, like, no matter what I do, like I said, hardcore permeates everything. I get up and I'll do a presentation in front of like whatever, like 50, 60 executives right now. And I'm listening to Doc Martin stomp before I go to do this presentation because I need that animation. I need that physicality. I need that, that muscularity.
What did you think? What was one of the biggest lessons you think you learned? Because it's just an across the board business lesson you could pass on because you did it from music to running a gym to other, like, even if it's a concept to stick by, because it's all business, is all starting from nothing and trying to build something. So it all at the end of the day kind of, it's some of the same ingredients or the same concepts, like what is something that you think you kind of chiseled out and kind of figured out that, okay, this kind of works across the board for any kind of business to use as a little bit, as one of the chapters in Art of War, something you could kind of pick at,
Yeah. I would say, like, it goes back to a Gene Simmons quote where he says, it's better to be an octopus than a fish. You get one tentacle sliced off, you got 7 left to swim with, right? So it's like, I call it a portfolio pursuits mentality. Always make sure you got 2, 3, 4 things going on. If one fades or gives you less meaning or less money, you got another one to pivot to. Don't ever over-identify with one pursuit. Be passionate, but softly identify, because you have to change that composite over time. But it makes life more fulfilling. You have more meaning, and you have more opportunities and avenues to make money if you got, 2 or 3, 4 pots on the stove, you know what I mean? So it's really that kind of mentality that you never just think about just being one thing or doing one thing. You be multiple things. Be a fucking octopus, have those tentacles out there all the time, man. It's kind of what you're talking about, like not just playing bass and madball. You got the podcast, you do other shit, you got the merch. Like, you got to have that octopus mentality.
You have to. And again, it's something I learned even later. And then it was always in front of your face, when you see all, the big dogs, a millionaire, a billionaire, whatever, we may see him. Oh yeah, he's the head of Coca-Cola. But yeah, before that, he also owns this. He owns 30 hotels. He owns 40 Chick-fil-A's. He owns a law firm. And you like Shaq. I saw what Shaq owns. It's ridiculous. Not ridiculous. And I salute him.
Yeah, he's great, man. He's great. He's got some good wisdom right there. Yeah,
he got like 50, Wingstop. Same thing with, who's a great guy that I learned out of all these rappers. I love hip hop almost more than anything, but they got some of the stupidest businessmen in that game. But who I salute was Rick Ross. I don't salute him as a former cop trying to say he wasn't a cop. I don't mind. Shout out to the cops. I got a lot of cops that are people, but I'm saying I don't like people that are faking the funk to try to sell a product. But anyway, but I did salute him in one business thing he did that I learned through my boy told me about it. So in his book, what he would do is, he has a fleet of Mercedes. He got 40 Mercedes. But when he's not driving them all, so you know what he does? When his important friends are in town, you want to rent some cars, he's renting those cars out to his... I was like, wow. His house, he'd rent out to videos because he had a mansion that was Evander Holyfield or something, really, Scarface style. You want to do a movie? Rent my house. I was like, wow. Man,
monetize in excess capacity right there. That's what that shit is.
Absolutely. And that was something I wanted to ask you about because I didn't know, but I learned that you said you were in the gym business. And
I own the gym. I did a bodybuilding show too.
I didn't know.
Bodybuilder.
Yeah, no, dope, and that's good because I'm far from a bodybuilder, but I grew up around bodybuilders in a lot of gyms. My brother, rest in peace, was always into lifting, and his best friend, so I was always around gyms. I'm more of a gym rat now, trying to catch up. But I there's a lot of things that. Wow, that's also a shiesty business. So I know there's some crazy stuff that goes on in that business, but there's also some cool stuff. How did it? What made you get it? Were you training before and said, "Hey, I'm training. Let me try to open up a gym"? How did that come up?
I've been training since I was 16. Never stopped. Did a bodybuilding show in my early 20s, something like that. Got my picture of Muscle and Fitness. Did pretty good in the show, and was always into like gym culture. You know what I mean? Just it's not a big deal for me. I don't have like resistance about working out. I could work out any time of the day.
Yeah,
you can give me 2 bourbons and I'll go to the gym right after. No problem.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But so yeah, I was running a online lending company, my friend and I, and we had some excess capital. We were like, yo, what are we going to put this into? We found this gym for sale. It was a little distressed. It needed some rehab, not so much in terms of the physical equipment, but the business model. So we went in and bought this gym, and then we moved our office right next to the gym in the shopping center. So we had like this synergy here, with like 2 businesses. We like owned this freaking shopping center. Yeah. And that lasted for a couple of years, but my buddy had made some mistakes in the previous business, ended up going to federal prison, and then things got a little crazy for me when he left. And
like I said, gym businesses are crazy, and gym people are crazy. Some of them, there's a lot of crazy. I love it. Like, it's funny, it's interesting. Like, I think there should be a movie. There's movies on it, but like, there's a crazy. It's like
they're all characters, all nuts.
It's like chefs,
professional wrestlers, and bodybuilders all working out at the same time. Like, nuts. I remember I was at the gym once where I grew up going to this gym. And it was kind of a Roy gym. I never did that, honest to God. I never was into that shit, always natural. But I hung out with these guys that did. And I remember one day there was like this fight broke out on a Sunday afternoon. This professional wrestler, Al Soul Train Phillips, and this other guy got in a fight over some Roy thing. I swear I'm working out. All of a sudden I see like 25-pound plates zipping by. They're throwing shit. It was like a riot in the gym. It was one of the wildest things I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah. No, that crazy. I said the gym culture and the chef cultures, the behind nuts. I go, there's so much partying and characters and wildness and the crazy things people do to get what they want is amazing.
It's not much different from hardcore, man. Like gym culture, hardcore culture, and like I'm really into cigar culture. Go to a lot of cigar lounges and cigar events, hang out with cigar personalities. That's in my book a lot too. Very similar, both in terms of the brotherhood and the characters and the insanity. So, like, I love all those worlds. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. I'm in Florida, so it's all cigars.
I'll go to Ybor City to go see the Misfits reunion show end of June. Man, hanging out in Ybor for 4 days.
You gonna be there?
Oh yeah.
I'll talk to you after that. I might see you there.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, for sure. But exactly. That's the I think Ybor was the first spot that Cubans actually touched down in Florida. I want to say was
capital of the world. My buddy Rick Rodriguez used to be the master blender for CAO Cigars. He just started West Tampa Tobacco Company. He's down there.
Nice.
There's the legendary history there for cigar culture.
Yeah, that's cool. I learned the love cigar. I grew up with cigars, not so much smoking them. Now I like having them when there's something special. My mother, rest in peace, was from Nicaragua, so she grew up. She told me she used to wake up as a little girl and just smell the fresh tobacco. They would hang it and I would get and crazy cigar small. Coincidence. My mom passed away or whatever, and I was in the middle of trying to sell a house. There was a lot of problems. Long story short, I got to sell the house. It was to a brand new couple, and they were from Nicaragua. When we sold the house, before we sold the house, they gave me the cigar, 2 good cigars. They're like, boom, and I was like, wow, it could have been like for my mom's the cigar and. If you're going to get a cigar, I don't want you to be from freaking,
Nicaragua tobacco, man, is outstanding. My friend Joshua Coburn, who I read about in the book, he's an old hardcore guy. Yeah. He's, motivational speaker, a writer. He just started Dissident Cigar Company, him and his wife, Sin.
Nice.
And they moved to Nicaragua, man. And they're at the factory there, dude. And the tobacco out of Nicaragua is outstanding.
Yeah.
Nicaragua.
For sure.
Cuban stuff, nothing against Cuban stuff, but, it's a little bit of a.
Yeah, for sure. It got its place. Like, champagne, you could great sparkling wine. That's just because it's not from Champagne. It's not champagne. I'm like, you'd still get something amazing from from Germany, from right next, for Italy, you know, okay, it's not, you know, so we know how that goes, but definitely Honduras, I know about, you know, Honduras, I know, and, shout out to the Cubans also. We were like, back in the day, we end up in Germany, and we would run into places where we were able to get a Cohiba, and we were like, just trying to bring them back, and it was cheap. It was a big deal to us, you know.
Cohiba's where it's at, man. My buddy Sean Williams, he's the cigar personality ambassador for Cohiba, man. He also has this great like boutique watch company, man. They just came out with the Cohiba Riviera cigar. Just got a box of those. Outstanding. Cohiba's still top of the game, man.
Yeah, it's like I'm not a beer drinker, and I know, but I know what good beer is. But it's like what a Marshall is what a Budweiser is. It's gonna be the standard always. You start there, now you take it like
Red Dot, man.
It's like a great, or like a Heineken. It's just gonna be always across the board. You know what? Nike. It's gonna be great. You know, and then it goes off, and then Jim's this. With the book, I know you said you wrote a book, a spy novel. So that was what was the first? Was that before this?
Yeah, that was 2015. It was the spy novel. When I got really into spy novels for a while, reading like Brad Thorp, Vince Flynn, Ted Bell, Daniel Silva. I just got into that world. I don't really like spy movies so much because it's less realistic, but the spy novels I really got into.
The novel, yeah.
I fucking wrote one, and I wrote it like this. The protagonist was like this badass anti-hero, like. Irish American, cigar smoking CIA guy. And, I wrote a spy novel, put it out in 2015. That was my first foray into books, learned a lot. And now I did this nonfiction book, totally switching gears. And this one's taken off, you know what I mean, to be honest with you. So this one I'm putting more money, more time, more effort into it. It touches so many spaces. I mean, on podcasts from music to entrepreneur.
It's more, relatable. It's relatable across the board. Yeah. And let me ask you this with the book writing. Were you writing before that book? Were you one of those people who wrote down stuff? Because
I always a writer. Yeah.
Okay, so you always.
Back in the day, even when I was in like the BMX and skateboard shit, when I was like.
Oh, I forgot you. Yeah, you said you were writing for the magazines. Got it.
I did zines back in the day. I wrote a zine called Shredder's Mag. There was also a zine around that time, Styling Zine, which is Dave Fox from Bad Luck 13, Rod Extravaganza was his old zine. He was an old BMXer, was sponsored by Schwinn. So like, it was always like writing, you know what I mean? And it evolved into books. I was really into Rowland and the spoken word shit. So I did like journal entry, like poetry books in college, and did spoken word events, kind of like Rollins-esque, you know what I mean? But now it's like straight up full length, deep dive books, you know?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I didn't put it together till you say, you were writing, and that's usually how it starts, you because I was never, I always wondered, like, wow, to keep writing and be able to like, it's like building a song. I'm always amazed about building. That's why I loved writing music, the building, even how you put that together. Where do you start? Like, some people tell you, we start from the end. Everybody has their crazy techniques and whatever.
Process. Yeah, that's right.
And this book right here, how long did it take you to do?
7 years, my man. Started in 2013. I was going through some hard times with like a marital divorce, a business divorce from a guy in an online lending business. And like, I was just thinking about all the shit I've been through and like off-road entrepreneurial adventuring over these 2 decades in all these different spaces. What have I learned? What kept me going? I thought of the Winston Churchill quote that success is going from failure to failure without loss of enthusiasm. I had this fire, this enthusiasm. I'm listening to like Cro-Mags on the beach. Hard times came on, didn't even really, never thought that John Joseph would be writing the foreword to this book years later,
Yeah,
but,
sure.
which is dope. But
Shout
like, I was just thinking about like, man, I got all this stuff in me. I got to get it on paper. I made some loose notes, and over 7 years, I iterated, draft. And then I hired Scribe Media, Lioncrest Publishing, who did books for like David Goggins. You know who David Goggins is?
Of course.
They did Can't Hurt Me.
Stay Hard.
Yeah. So they did his book. So I hired them because they're pro.
Yeah.
And took a year and a half to edit it, come up with all the iconography, all the other like marketing plan and everything else. And then boom, came out end of September. And like, this is my thing for the next 2 to 3 years outside of like, managing the labels and doing stuff in fintech, which is my day job. So like just going all in because, I got passion for it. It seems to be connected with people. It seems to be helping people. And that gives me more gratification than anything, just getting a message like, yo, I read this chapter. It spoke to me, changed the way I think, or helped me understand some things. Like, look, we're all here for limited time. We got to do something to help other people. If we think we've learned anything in a humble way, we got to put it out there. Doesn't mean we know it all. That's not what I'm saying. But we got to try to synthesize what we think we know and see if it helps others, man. That's art. That's music. That's life. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. The older I got, the more I started tapping in with that because going through some of my own shit, I had to tap into other people's miseries. I'm saying that with mad love, but like you realize, like, wow, if I didn't hear that story, I wouldn't know that I could do this.
That's
You
right.
know,
That's
and
right.
then it made me say the next time a convo came up that maybe I wouldn't talk about my situation, I would bring it up a little bit easier, being like, hey, you know what? Somebody is gonna there's gonna be one person that is gonna take something from it. I don't care what it is. I learned that with music, and now with just something like that. If enough people, I could say, if I said one word, if I said meatloaf in front of 1,000 people, I'm gonna get a reaction from a couple of them that is gonna mean something to them.
Yeah,
Somebody, for whatever reason.
I'm just gonna think of Will Ferrell and Step Brothers. And stuff.
Exactly, but then some people's gonna say, "My mother who passed made me a meal." You know, exactly. So it's like, you know, but it's crazy. And what I liked about what you do is, I would always look at people who wore different hats because, again, I tended to box myself. And, you know, in box people in general, no, you're a label guy. No, you're the band guy, you know, and that's where you stay. And it's like, no, you know, there's a lot of face. Like, I tell people, they're like, I thought you were this, I thought you were that. I'm like, no, there's more to me. And then you realize, oh, there's more to me.
Multi-dimensionality, man. It's a key to, absolutely. Yeah.
And putting this book together, what you think was the hardest part about putting this? Because I mean, it ain't hard to take down what's happening to you and putting it together, but was there anything, did you find out something about yourself that you were maybe like, man,
there was a couple chapters in there where I was like, I almost didn't want to write them because it was too vulnerable. You know, I wrote this one chapter about times where I lost it all and was fighting, and I was doing a financial planning practice. And then the 2008 financial crisis hit, lost a lot of clients, man. And I couldn't find any work, even though I was working all day with clients trying to get sales. And I had a young family, man, 3 kids, and I had to go on public assistance, man. Writing that chapter was very difficult to admit from a pride standpoint because I'm a workaholic, and to admit that I got to the point where that had to happen, that was tough. But that chapter, I referenced Roger Moret's story, man, him growing up on public assistance, what he writes about in his book, My Riot, and then how that juxtaposes with the song Public Assistance by AF, and how, you know, he kind of delineates between, you know, a hand up and a hand out. You know, a hand out, he kind of eviscerates in public assistance, but in his own life, he appreciated a hand up, knew the value of that, the difference on how to handle that. So I write that chapter really referencing Roger. And so that was a tough chapter for me to write because, you know, it's a vulnerable place to admit that you got to a point in your life where you hit that valley. You know, I struggled out of it, obviously, right? And, you know, everything's flourishing, you know, now years and years later. But there was a time, man, where, you know, it was tough.
Yeah, no, it's rough when you're going through tough times, and then, you know, you have to kind of face that. You know, the same thing happened with my family at one point. You know, my parents separated, and it was me, my brother, my sister, and my mother living in a converted garage, a 1-bedroom garage with 2 dogs, and it was crazy stuff. But again, you know, my mother had lost her job. And she was a very proud woman and kept it to, I found this out way later, but it made me even more proud of who my mom's was. A long story short, she went to get a public assistance, which she was one of those who didn't want, but she knew she needed it. She had kids. When she got her first check, she had got a job. She returned the check. She says, I don't need this. I won't be needing this, but thank you. Because my mother died a patriot. My mother was born in Nicaragua, but when she came to America, she even said, I came with nothing, but I came with the will to work. And in this country, if you come to work, you'll make it. My mother had 5th grade education. She had to get permission at 17 to come be a housekeeper in Puerto Rico. At 16, got a sponsor to come to America as a housekeeper. She made her own life, bought her own house. Wow. You know, came from nothing, but taught herself English, became a citizen. When my mom's died, when my mom's passed, it was like, no, you put the American flag out.
Yeah,
you know,
right.
She's proud of being a Nicaraguan always.
That's the spirit, but she's like embodied while still retaining her heritage, right?
Yes.
You integrate. You don't separate, you integrate.
And we also saw, look, we all know there's a lot of problems in this country. Nobody's perfect by far. But with that, like my mother saw that when she needed help, she was able to get the help. And she also said, not everybody wants to flip burgers. That's the problem.
Yeah.
And it's true. There's, it's true. It is hard for certain people, but nobody wants the unglamorous jobs. But there's work. If you got to throw all that, and you just got to make it happen. When you got that,
That's right.
And that kind of tells you the type of person you are. Hey, we got to make it happen. Man. I'm gonna do this so I could get to there.
That's right.
But you got to do it.
You got to do it. You got to go through some of the gritty shit, man, to learn that work ethic, to appreciate the good stuff when it comes, right?
Exactly.
Like, I mean, you got to go through that. Like, I think that builds character, that builds gratitude long term. Look, man, I appreciate getting in my Cadillac now and smoking a cigar in my hot tub way more because I was on fucking public assistance once. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So I appreciate the wealth so much more, I think, than other people because of that.
For sure. And all right, in writing a book, what are somebody who's thinking about, maybe I'm a writer. What are a couple of quick little like let's say crib notes that you learn on writing this book, like little things somebody should look out for in compiling something? Like where should they start? Like what's your quick 101 for dummies, how to put a book together for hardcore kids?
Think about who your audience is first, who's going to read it and what they're going to get out of it. Don't think about what you want to say. Think about what they need to hear, and then tailor what you say to what they need to hear, because they don't give a shit about you. They care about what they're going to get out of the book. So you got to put it in a way where they're going to walk away with something actionable or something that really strikes them. I mean, it's going to have you in it, but you got to make sure that it's reader facing. And then remember what Hemingway said: all first drafts are shit, right? So just get it out, structure it later. I mean, you still want to get it out with some structure if you have the forethought, you should, right? But don't perfect is the enemy of the good. Just get it out first. Look, this took 7 years of reshaping and editing and structuring, and I think it became as perfect as it's going to be, particularly with the help of a huge editing team that worked at all the big publishing houses. I mean, that helped too. Yeah. You know what I mean? But you just got to start. You just got to get going. You know what I mean? Sit down and pour it out, and then reshape it later. And
I couldn't agree.
Look at it.
For sure. I couldn't agree more, because we just had these talks on stuff with my own businesses and stuff that I've done. It's like, you got to pull the trigger. Then you go. Don't worry about whatever. Because it'll never come out.
You go, and that's the thing. I wrote this book because of that mentality, right? Failure Rules is about, like, you don't want to chase failure. It's not failure fucking porn. Yeah. Like, you just need to anticipate it when you're doing bold, ambitious, difficult things, and know how to metabolize it, leverage it, and make sure you use it for good when it happens, right? But it's the ready, fire, aim mentality, right? Yeah. Like, sometimes you just got to ready, fire, aim, dude, and figure it out as you go. Because if you sit around waiting for perfect conditions, you'll be sitting around forever, and you ain't never going to start.
That's a fact. That's a fact. We have these always when launching a podcast and a merch idea. Because we're same thing as a musician. Same thing I do with songs. Yeah. You're a perfectionist. We also have you have a style. You also want your idea to be we all know we want it to be represented the right way. We want people to get it. That's right. But we end up worrying about bells and whistles when we're like, listen, if the spirit is there, they're gonna feel it.
Amen. You can refine later. You get other people to come in and layer in their opinion and shape it with you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Get some like strategic help of those that you trust who know what you're trying to do. Just like a producer, editing is the same kind of thing. But you just got to get it out with soul first, and then clean it up and shape it later, make it presentable and facing the audience, the reader, the listener, whatever kind of art you're producing.
Yeah. And now, like, okay, now let's say they got, I got kind of, I got some stuff. I got something to say. I'm a writer. I got this. What's a good angle I'm going for? What's the procedure, or what are some of the procedures somebody might take to be like, okay, let me get this printed now? What are some maybe 101 ways or options, if any? Because I've heard of Amazon doing certain things where they do book by book, and it might work for certain people's things. Are there things like that in the book world? Like, what people could look out for? New book writers.
I had two different paths. My first book, I did it all DIY. Like, I hired an editor off Craigslist. I hired a designer to do the cover art. It was actually a guy from the music industry who did the cover art for Dropkick Murphys, Social Distortion, Hank the Third. Wow, so I hired him to do the cover art, and I hired somebody else to do the typesetting. So really low budget DIY. I uploaded it to Amazon. I got it put on there, right? It was print on demand. So they made them as they were ordered, but then this one, I went big, got an agency, hired two different publicists, I hired all kinds of the marketing agencies to optimize the algorithms on my Amazon ads. I went big, like straight up multi-year business plan. But the first model is where you can get started, man. You can do a lot on your own with very little money. I think I maybe spent like 3-4 grand in all to get that first book out, just on hiring different people. So it's kind of low entry, and you can make it happen, But then it's the toughest part for me. You asked this earlier. What's the toughest part for me? Writing a book's easy for me. Envisioning it's easy. Coming up with like the aesthetic is easy. The message. The hard part for me was building the audience. I'd never done that on my own before. For the record labels, I hired that out. Social media and everything else.
Yeah,
this is the first time I'm doing social media myself.
Trench
that's
work.
new, but it's working. But I also had the publicists working the podcast and all that, so it all kind of converges. But it's the audience building. So like for me, it's disciplining myself not to write another book, just like a band who doesn't want to record because they want to maximize the record they just made. So you can go on tour for 3 years before you do another record. It's like, for me, it's like I could write another book right now, but I'm kind of going on this virtual podcast tour and other promotion for the next 3 years just to build that audience for this book before I hit another one.
Got you. And any plans on what you would do next?
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to do another book kind of based on the themes out of this book, kind of probably I have this one, failure rule number 3 is money is spiritual. It's the idea of taking money and meaning and put them together, just like finding a way to make your passions produce money, right? And I think I'm going to do a whole book on that concept. So I already got a bunch of ideas, but I got to let it germinate for a while, build the audience, and then in a couple of years, I'll bang that book out. No problem.
And what are some of the things you could tell people also in learning this? Obviously, when especially working in music, you meet people of all walks of life. Yeah. So if you need help, you kind of throw it out there and you'd be surprised, from writers, editors, graphic, were there any specific people that, that you picked their brains, or obviously that you were like, oh man, what do I do? Like, where can I go from here?
So there's this guy, Srinivas Rao, wrote this book, The Art of Being Unmistakable. Huge influence on me in writing this book. He was like a misfit tech guy in Silicon Valley and was stumbling from job to job and decided to just bag it all, move back into his parents, start surfing, and then start podcasting and writing and consulting. And it's all kind of based on these surf analogies. And he just wrote a killer book. He has a podcast called The Unmistakable Creative. I hired him to coach me, man, became friends with him. And he helped me on kind of skip the line and get over the learning curve, a lot of ways to navigate kind of building this kind of author, this readership as an author. So, you got to find those mentors. You don't always have to hire them, right? I mean, you can be somebody you just know or whatever, introduced to, but you got to find those mentors and see if you can kind of skip the line a little bit.
Yeah, no, for sure. And that's actually what I was saying, which I think is cool for you. And it's something that I think maybe, somehow down the line, you should put out in one form or another is, even if it's online, even if it's on a channel, on YouTube or whatever, little short lessons on, because there's a lot of people I know that are writers that want to put books out, that would love to put a book out and don't know where to start. Like, start here and work this out and work this if you're a writer, even because again, like you said, how to do it in magazine form, computer, promotion form. You've seen it in different forms. And I know for a fact, I met a lot of different people that like, oh, I would love to write for a book, or I want to start a zine, because they're writers. They don't want to, they can't write for a band. They don't want that, but they want to get their passion out. And I'm not a writer and never wanted to, but I was always fascinated on how you put it together, because I want to know how it's built, because wow, like, if starting with the Bible, you could take any book, like, wow. What made you first say, okay, I want to do this thing. I want to write it. I hope people look at it. I want to do it. And it's doing it for people.
Yes, that's right.
Or else you would just memorize and do it for yourself. You're like, oh, I got 100 books in my head. You know what I mean? But it's like,
don't get it out. Right.
You got to have that. I got something to say and I think I could help somebody, or I want to be heard. There's always a message that comes with doing it. And I think it's I think it would be helpful for people to be able to be like, yo, I got to get some shit out. Because I was always wondering, how the hell, with Blood Clot, I would hear his stories. He was one of the first people that I personally listened to on like what he was doing to put it together when he was putting together his first book.
He had his writer's room and his wall and his notes
and that.
Talking about that on the Rich Roll show.
And I'm amazed, because the same thing with writing music. Everybody got a different style, but it's all similar. You gotta make time for it. You gotta put the time in.
Protect it and isolate and get in the zone. Hear the muse and just let it flow, man. And just one piece after another and see how you build on it. That's
and
right.
like you said it best, no better way than like you were saying before was like that whole pull the trigger. I mean, there's no better way, you know, to put this whole thing together than like, you know, if you're passionate about something, you can't think about it. If your heart's fully into it, don't worry about your brain catching up. It'll catch up.
That's right.
You know what I mean? Like the
And
brain.
don't worry about outcomes. Worry about process.
Exactly.
Just keep going on the next step. Then the next step will reveal itself after that. Yeah, you might have a vision long term and all the other steps, but they're going to change and iterate over time. Just focus on what is my next step. What do I need to do now? And then plan and, you know, forecast from there. You know, you just got to get in it.
And for the Smoking Podcast family, what could you let them know what's next for you? What's your next move? Obviously, going to be touring. Like, are you doing the States? Are you ever planning to go overseas with it? What's the next move for you? People following you? Oh, and also, where can they keep following you?
Yeah, you can find the book anywhere books are sold online. Failure Rules with an exclamation mark. 5 Rules of Failure for Entrepreneurs, Creatives, and Authentics. Kick-ass audiobook too, if that's your thing and you don't read, man.
That's what I'm going to do.
Yeah, the actor from Twin Peaks, Jay is saying, he did the audio version, man.
Great.
He's kind of he did the music video also for Social Distortion, Machine Gun Blues.
And the front layout is great. The color schemes, the layouts, it's really cool. It's like makes you want to grab it. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's cool.
The chick that did the cover art actually does all Stephen King's cover art. So
there you go. Then you got some hard hitters. And so you got any other like besides are you podcasting? Do you do any other kind of events? Do you show up or
doing as many podcasts as possible, like 2 to 3 a week right now. I'm going to keep that going forever.
Yeah.
I'll start my own podcast next year. I'm doing a couple big events this year with like booths to just sell the book. And I have a merchandise company called Soul and Fire Supply Company that I'm selling stuff too. I have my own cigar brand for that merch too. So I'm doing the PCA trade show in Vegas in July, which is the Premium Cigar Association trade show. So I'll have a booth there selling stuff.
Nice.
And then I'm gonna have a booth at This Is Hardcore, Joey's Fest in Philly. So I'll be selling stuff there. That's kind of the 2 big events, physical events for this year. Next year, I'll be getting into doing like spoken word stuff, maybe in the music scene, definitely in the cigar world. And then the book actually just got accepted to be in the curriculum at Newman University.
Wow.
The syllabus for entrepreneur minor course, right? So you're going to have like college kids reading hate read lyrics as part of the
there you go. That's how it works. We got to infiltrate the system, and that's great. And that's great. So they could catch you and let everybody know the Instagrams. Again, you could get the book everywhere. Google it, take a picture of it, highlight it, do whatever you got to do. Yeah. But also the Instagram, let them know the Instagram.
Yeah, that's where I'm most active, at Andrew Thorp King. No E on the end of Thorp, just like Thorp Records, THORP, at Andrew Thorp King. Instagram, same handle for YouTube. I do some kick-ass videos, kind of, just echoing the themes of the book in a different way there. And check out the soundtrack, Spotify, Apple Music, the Failure Rules soundtrack playlist. Kick-ass punk and hardcore bands on that actually the songs that helped me get through some of these hard times or songs that I listened to as I wrote the book. So straight up authentic, genuine soundtrack, man.
Great.
So check all that stuff out there. And you get a free Failure Rules mini course if you go to my website, andrewthorpking.com. And you also get you on the email list.
Yeah, definitely. We're going to put all that information up. Make sure you go support that, get the book, and go check it out. And for sure, go buy all that Thorp. If you still get anything from Thorp? Because if so, everybody go get that Thorp stuff. Make sure
the website's still up. I mean, it's kind of a catalog label at this point. Sailor's Grave's more active, but Thorp all stuff's available everywhere, dude.
Absolutely.
All the records, Madball, Sheer Terror, Slapshot, whatever else it is,
Absolutely. And let me know when you make it down to Florida for that cigar stuff, and then we get you over here live, and then we do a cigar. We'll do a cigar cast. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Are you in that area? You're like in Tampa area?
I'm in the. I'll get to Tampa. I'm in the South Florida area. So by the Hard Rock area.
I'm going down with my buddy who's a rep for General Cigars, man.
Let me know. We're in Florida. Listen, it's Florida, and if something's getting smoked, Hoya Rock's there one way or another. But definitely. Listen,
smoking something different here, but that's all right.
But I'm smoking that too. But listen, no, I had a couple of good Cubans at a spot downtown. A friend of mine from Canada had a company, and he put me on, and I had it with a nice a whiskey, and I saw the je ne sais quoi. I think it's the
pairings.
Huh?
You saw the beauty of the pairing.
Yes, and I always thought, hey, I get it. Drink wine out of a glass. No, but I really got it, and even a little with coffee. I was like, wow.
Oh,
okay.
with coffee. Hell
oh
yeah.
my God. I think that might be even.
Absolutely, man.
You got to make it.
Every morning I have a cigar with my Death Wish coffee.
There you go. Absolutely. And you got to make it so we can have some coffee and cigars. But listen, Andy, I'm glad you made it down. Listen, everybody, go get the book. Everybody, especially, again, big shout out to the UK. I'm going to shout out the UK big time because they are tuning in big time. Awesome. So the rest of Europe, you better start subscribing and catching up. Shout out to everybody around the planet. Listen, get the book. Andy Thorp, you know what's up. Smoking Word Podcast. We out of here. We dropping this Thursday. I'll hit you up later. Go get that book.
Thanks, boy. I love you, brother. Thanks for having me.
You know what's up, one love. We out of here.
Got it.
Peace.
Peace.